Okay. Welcome to the Tuesday morning meeting of the BOCC. It's nice to have everybody here. If you want to join me, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the next 2 weeks, it's Commissioner Weber is on vacation, so you're stuck with Arn and myself. Minutes of last week. Commissioner Mortensen.
Minutes. Just one quick comment before I do that. We just did the pledge and the word democracy didn't appear. Republic appeared. I just want to remind the world that we are a republic. No democracy has ever survived any length of time, and republics have. Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week, and I move to approve those minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any questions, comments, corrections? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Consent agenda. I'll run through that. Under consent, under agreements, contracts, bid awards. Our noxious weed folks have an agreement with the state of Washington State Department of Transportation. We assist with maintaining noxious weed control on the right of ways in the Mount St. Helens area. Basically milepost 30 and up is what we kind of take care of. We've been doing this for them for quite a few years. It's a contract up to a maximum amount of $5,000 that they pay us to do that. So that's what that is. Public Works has a professional services agreement with Gray and Osborne. They provide some development review services on an as-needed basis when we get overloaded or we don't have the time to look at something, we can work with them to do that. It's a 2-year agreement, not to exceed $50,000. Under correspondence, the first two, A and B, are safety inspection reports from Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to Pacific Corps, one on the Merwin project and one on Swift 1. And C is we post an affidavit of posting that we've posted all our minutes and records for the month of July. This week we have vouchers in the amount of $3,668,004.72. We had Deborah Gardner in yesterday, and I'll just say, you see these figures here and just a little bit of kind of the background and kind of how they handle that. They monitor stuff coming in and out of the county on a daily basis. We keep a liquid account with the state of Washington and the state of Washington fund, and they just transfer back and forth into it or out of it as they see warrants and stuff come in. So it's nothing abnormal really we did it at the credit union. You just monitor your liquidity, but just kind of throw that out there, give people a little insight on the daily operations. That's it for consent agenda. Any questions? Rob?
Yeah, just a quick question. What would be an example of the claims that are on that list of vouchers?
Operations of the could be payroll. It could be things when we're working with business, maybe supplies for, paper supplies, all kinds of different.
Oh, okay, so it's
things.
not like somebody had filed a suit against the
Oh, no,
county?
no. These are operating expenses of
Oh,
the
okay.
county.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the motion item, the consent agenda as has been discussed, presented.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor
Aye.
also vote aye. Motion carries. 2 items from Public Works. Susan, I see you on. There you are.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. The first item we have before you is the local agency agreement to obligate Federal Highway Administration's promoting resilience operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-effective, cost-saving transportation. The grant, this is for the Delamita Road Culvert Replacement Project. This is the project we set up the project number for last week. The total estimated cost of the project is $6.8 million, which is 100% reimbursable from the state.
We kind of talked about this last week. Last week, we approved the engineering of this and the engineering, we're pretty good at the estimates, but that estimate could change just a little bit as once the engineering gets through on both these projects, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions on this?
We had a lengthy discussion of this yesterday? No, even the week before.
Week before, because the engineering part of it was on motion agenda.
We had a chuckle or two about the acronym, of course,
Yeah.
but so, Mr. Chairman, even though both are the same, we'll tackle them individually.
Sure.
I move that we approve the local agency agreement to obligate Federal Highway Administration funds for the Delamita Road Culvert Replacement Project, as has been discussed.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll call for vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you. Item 5.
So item 5 is the local agency agreement to obligate the protect fundings for the Gilmore Road Studebaker Creek Culvert Replacement Project. This project has an estimated cost of $3.5 million.
Any questions? Once
Mr.
again, I think
Chairman,
we
I
covered this pretty well last
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
I move that we approve the local agency agreement to obligate Federal Highway Administration's funds for the Gilmore Road Studebaker Creek Culvert Replacement Project.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Susan, you were persuasive as ever.
Yeah.
I try. Thank you, gentlemen.
Couple little updates before we get into comments. Our meetings tomorrow, Wednesday, have been canceled because I'll be the only one in the office the next 2 Wednesdays. So we're rescheduling the Habitat for Humanity. I saw a date, but I don't recall it right off the top of my head. On the 14th, okay. The other thing I kind of wanted to run through, I just got some information back on it today. I've had a couple questions come up over the weekend on recycling glass, and the comments have been kind of around, well, we don't do it because the county doesn't charge enough to do it type thing. So I thought I reached out to our people landfill and said, what's the deal on this? Here's what's going on with the glass, and you can apply it to plastic too. There's really no market for it now. It used to be they sent all that stuff to China and they'd use it, but China doesn't accept it anymore. So there's some domestics that are trying to develop that will use the plastics and stuff, but at this point in time, there is none. So you can recycle your glass, you can take it into transfer stations, but Waste Control does not sort it anymore and doesn't crush it and doesn't send it off someplace. It goes out to the landfill because there's no market for it. Now, we reached out to a company out of Seattle that does some work down here, and we asked them if they wanted to pick the glass up on the back route, and no, they don't, because it's not cost effective for them to do that. So we could, as a county, we could up rates and give you recycle bins, and you could do all that stuff and feel good about it, but it's going to go to the landfill anyway. And I think you know this commission enough that we're not going to mandate that you're paying higher for something that doesn't make sense. So when it becomes a marketable product, we'll do something different with it. And you can bring it into a transfer station, but I'm just telling you the facts as we know them, and it's going out to the landfill. That's where it goes, because Waste Control has no place to send it that makes any economic sense. Okay? So we've heard those comments a couple times, and so I thought I'd just address it. And then I had one for Larry, because you asked me a question last week, and I just sat down this morning and said, dang, I forgot to get an update on the plans for the juvenile, and I'll make sure I make a call. I apologize for that.
On the recycling, there have been programs to figure out whether you can convert the plastics back to oil, like through pyrology or something like that. And even in Spokane County, they had an incinerator. That's another way you could get some energy out of it. The incineration hasn't worked too well. I don't know the details on that, but I can imagine that it's got to do with an environmental impact of the outgassing from when you burn. From a pyrology standpoint, we took oil initially, converted into plastic. It took energy to do that. To convert the plastic back to oil takes at least as much energy as the original oil. So it doesn't really make any sense economically. You're not saving anything. You're probably just aggravating the situation. So that's why that part hasn't been resolved yet. And in terms of glass is just takes sand and add a couple of chemicals to it, and you make glass. And there is really virtually no advantage to use glass versus the original materials. That with the original materials, that is sand, at least you probably can plan your supply chain. When you worry about recycling, you never know quite what is going there. And I'll stop.
Yes, my comment has to do with volume of material going to the landfill. I think, Rick, you mentioned that it's glass is not crushed. If you have a regular container that's not been crushed and you put it in the landfill, it's going to take up this much space. But if it is crushed, it's going to take up much less space. So I don't know if that's if that's of consideration or not.
And I didn't ask that question. I can ask and see what we do with it up to that point.
I'd refer to the experts, but if you think about how they compact the trash, they're running on it a fairly aggressive machine, and chances are an empty vessel will get crushed. Chances are an empty vessel that doesn't get crushed will be filled with something. So I don't think, my guess is it's not a problem, but that's a good question. this point, let me talk a little bit about bicycles.
Yeah.
I keep on seeing nasty comments on the website, on the social media sites about stuff. And I'm not advocating anything in particular, but I'm advocating a change of mentality over bicycling. Just about everybody in the county thinks bicycling is a toy. So the standard answer is just put asphalt over the dike and let that be the bike lane. Well, I commuted for probably close to 20 years on a bicycle. And in Southern California, commuting on a bicycle was actually beneficial for everybody. I got some free exercise. And the fact that I wasn't standing in line at the pump station helps you. And the fact that I didn't have my car out on the highway helps you. So it's one of those things where let's stop thinking about it as a toy and think about it as a legitimate commuter vehicle. That is exemplified in spades if you go to any of the European cities. I remember my first trip into Zurich. I got off the train and I go out there and I don't know if I saw fewer than 10,000 bicycles parked at the train station. It's just different way of life. Now, I'm not pretending that you take what you've got today and you destroy it to put a bike path in there, but make sensible commentary about it. It's not a toy. If it's not fit for your situation, that's fine, but call it what it is. If you're doing new developments, like I'm very upset over the development on Old Pacific Highway, just south of Kalama, even though they subscribe to Complete Streets and all that, they let new developments actually reduce the overall width of the road there while adding more housing. And there was plenty of room there to be able to add a bike lane in both of the directions, but they chose not. And it just makes it more dangerous for anybody. Who wins on that? Probably the developer gets an extra 6 feet. It's really is a bad choice. So that's what I'm saying. Let's think about it sensibly. Off the soapbox, and don't stare at me that way.
Don't
Well-
honk at him when you get up behind him.
Well, I'm just wondering on that note and on recycling, and recycling would be a good example, I guess. Is there a point in time where we focus more on principle than on cost? Right now, recycling, the issue is it's not cost effective. We can't make money off of it, or we can't even make it pay for itself. Is there a point in time when our principles are more important than the money? If we were running out of resources and the only option we had was to recycle and it was more expensive, would we do it then? What point does that cross over and principles are more important than the money?
If I get going, I may not be able to stop.
Go ahead. I just think in history, anytime America's been real resourceful and they've been free to do it. When there's been a need that arises, we rise to the challenge. But at some point in time, go ahead, Aaron. I'll
Yeah,
let you take it.
I think I can lay the case, it may take me a while, that the only thing that matters is the signaling that a price gives. Otherwise, it becomes some autocratic decision somewhere. And pricing things is where the complication is. When I first got into the LA area, the valley, the basin, the LA basin was Smogville. And that was because the price of gasoline was cheap. Cars could go any place, but the price of gasoline did not include the price of the pollution. So if you start to look at the world as pricing in the pollution, you never have to say, am I going to take principle or economics? That the meat for the tyrants and how they can get things done is by arguing that they have the higher principles and you're going to pay the cost. And you really want to avoid putting that kind of power in people, but you want to be sure that you're paying the full cost there. You've heard me discuss here things like a hot topic is the homeless. Well, we always talk about it in one half the cost. If we look at the holistic cost of the matter, including some of the intangibles, we might come out with a different conclusion. So when you misprice in the market, bad things happen. We know from a purely materialistic standpoint of a commodity item that mispricing things causes a disaster. That's why the Soviet Union failed. It's not because the people were stupid or lazy, just their system did not take into account human nature. And human nature is such that you will always try to get the most for your dollar. So I disagree with your premise to begin with. Let the cost be the cost. Be on top of us to make sure that we give you the holistic full cost of our action. Unintended consequences have to be factored in.
Yeah.
I cut it as short as I could.
Well, yeah, and I agree. When you just look back in history, things done just because of principle. You go back to, we've talked about Department of Ecology back because of the river that was muddied up and it forms. And now look what you got today. You got this behemoth that just costs, they just have the vacuum right at your wallet, sucking it out of there. In the 70s, look at the Department of Education. We want to stay the top educators in the world. So we got Department of Education. Look where we're at now. You got this behemoth taking it out of your wallet and not producing revolt. Department of Energy in the 70s, once again, we need to be more self-sufficient. We're only doing 26% or so of our resources here. We got to correct that. Well, look, what do you got now? You got this department sucking stuff out of your wallet and not doing the results. So I'm real big in, and I think Arn is too, the market will figure that out. If the players don't adjust to what's wanted in the market, they're out of business.
And
I think it's just very, very strong and it works very well. We're a unique country in that sense, and to have government step in and want to take over the market is just, it really
Wrong.
doesn't sit well with me.
And there is a trick that the government uses frequently is to benefit you while transferring the cost to him. And that always gets positive for you. And as time goes on, guy over here, starts to think, well, maybe it's my turn to get a benefit from the government. When you start thinking like that, you've got what I've written about a few times. You have a banana republic. Government is great. I just have to get my guy in office. And we're seeing that right now. If I can only get my guy in there, no principle. It's principle in economics transition, but then there's a line there and it'd take me a while to straighten that one out. There was something else I want to say, but I got inebriated with my own verbosity. Oh, well, it'll come.
Do you want to touch on, I think I'll touch on, and you can chime in this a little bit because this is really local. And we've talking a little bit about the landfill and I'll bring this up here because I'll be honest with you, the cities are probably not going to be happy with us. We back before the county owned the landfill, I think it generated basically from Tenant Way when that landfill was going, there was a interlocal agreement between the county and the cities on they'd work together and make decisions on what to do with that. And the county, I don't have it sitting right in front of me, but they kind of gave the county the lead to negotiate price and stuff. So we had that agreement in place. When we purchased the landfill out at headquarters, that never went away. So what you have It's this interlocal agreement that cities sit on and direct what the county has some influence, what the county does with that, that business out there. The problem is the county pays the debt on that. The county pays the operations. The county pays for the initial, for the cleanup. Whenever that comes, we put away a tremendous amount of funds. There's no liability to the cities at all. So I've looked at that, and I looked at it quite a long time ago and said, this really doesn't make sense. Why are we having people that have no financial stake in this telling us how to operate our business? It's like Bud Clary having other places that have nothing to do with them tell them how to run their place, or my credit union, somebody, it makes no sense. So we've, and I'll be clear with you. I don't think Commissioner Weber is in favor of this, but we have our Public Works Director to have that sent out, have lawyer look at it, because we think it needs to be adjusted. The city, there's still the rate committee. They can still sit down and we can look at that and negotiate and do those type of things. But the operations of the landfill is a county-owned business, and we're going to adjust that and take some of the city influence out of there. And I'm telling you right here that you're not going to like it. So you're going to hear some grumbling, but
So
try to be real transparent up here. But so
Yeah.
if you hear stuff, that's where we're at.
I'd like to add a little to that. We've been trying to be careful on contracts, and some of you may have heard me speak before that I really don't like these contracts that do not have an escape clause, that do not have a termination clause that makes sense for the county. And some of those old contracts were not crafted with the interests of the county. I'm being very euphemistic there. So this is one of the perfect examples. The cities themselves are going to be laboring under that issue also. There are contracts there that if somebody had really been minding the shop, they wouldn't have signed it.
Yeah. And it's going to get probably construed that you're trying to do something to the cities, and that's really not the case. What I'm trying to do is clean up dysfunctional contract that our attorneys don't like, and make it work like it's supposed to. It has, we're not looking to gouge cities or do anything of that nature. We just, it's a business enterprise, and it needs to be set up like it should. So that's all we're doing with that. But you will probably hear some comments.
I don't doubt it. One other quick comment under your upcoming events, Friday, August 8th at 4:30, the Board of Health deadline. Friday is the 9th. The 8th is a Thursday. Does it end on the 8th on Thursday, or does it end on the 9th on Friday?
Well, we've got a special calendar.
Special
You
calendar.
don't have our calendar, Steve?
I don't have a copy of that one. I can't wait to get it.
My guess would be that the date actually takes precedence over if we
Mr.
mislabeled
Chairman,
it as Friday instead
Chairman,
of Thursday.
you have to learn on questions like that, you blame the clerk.
Well, Bailey.
That was
Bailey's
a
not here.
typo,
We'll blame
yeah.
Bailey.
That was a typo. It's August 8th. So whatever day that falls on. Let me look.
So the 8th is the correct date.
Thursday,
So Thursday, the
Yeah.
The
8th.
Friday
Thursday night.
is a typo.
typo.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Hi, guys. Just a thought. Have you gone to Oregon as far as glass recycling? Because on 205, and I believe it's right before you hit 85, 84 exit, or right after, you can see there's a glass recycling plant. So maybe there's some outlet for our glass south. Just a thought.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is really waste control is the people that run the recycling. And if they ship it down to and it makes sense for them, that's perfect. The county, we don't recycle per se. We house what they won't take.
Oh, I see. Well, maybe
Even if
some,
we put recycling bins out to everybody in the county, that product would go to waste control.
yeah, they wouldn't waste control. I mean, I know it's a separate entity, but they make the decision whether to ship it or not.
Yeah,
But maybe a suggestion to them.
Mr. Morrison may have a better idea, but in my mind, waste control is who we contract with to collect the garbage, and then they utilize our landfill for disposal of it.
I see. Thank you.
Anything else?
Re- Regarding the landfill, you've got what I think is one of those remarkable examples of you get the right person in charge and you can still do good things even if you're with the government. And in that sense, Mike Moss operates it like a business, and yet he has the principles of the county in mind. Somebody mentioned something, and maybe I heard it last night at a forum. In any event, the way the landfill operates, it takes the majority, the overwhelming majority of the waste from the county, but it then takes about an equal amount from outside the county. That amount that it pulls in from outside the county is done via a competitive bid. So let's say the Lewis County wants to find a home for its trash. It'll get bids from any number of organizations. And that's what we compete in. So it's not like we can set whatever price we want. And the reason that's a little bit of a handicap on us is because, just give you an example, if our landfill were held by a private entity, like the landfill in Klickitat, the opening up of a new cell there would be at probably half the cost of what we have to pay. It's just the regulations we operate on as a government entity are onerous because of the prevailing wage, plus whenever we get bids for something, guess what we look at? What we look like to them. We look like big pockets. And because the other companies, the other major companies have landfills here and there and so forth, private companies bidding to do something think, well, if I win this contract, it'll give me a leg up on this one. So the games aren't the same. Despite all that, our team does a remarkably good job there. And in doing so, it protects the very advantageous trash rates this county has. And I used to know the numbers. I don't offhand. I know I'm close enough, but I just want to be sure you understood that claims that we're going to do something different in the landfill are going to be hard to explain.
Okay. See no others? I don't see any, don't even see any questions. Okay.
Did
We explained it all well today.
It must have been.
Yeah.
Did we want to worthwhile. Yesterday I also heard something that didn't make a lot of sense. The roads of the county are actually in pretty good shape. You're always going to find something there that is at the tail end before it gets resurfaced or redone. But overall, you can tell when you move onto a county road that it's pretty well done. We, as a county, cannot go in and fix the road, say, in South Kelso. And as a consequence, there was a misstatement saying, well, when I get in to be commissioner, we'll fix the roads. And it's like, that's a jingoism. You know, the roads in the municipality are beyond the reach of the county. Even if we wish to fix them and could pull the money aside to fix them, we would not legally be able to do that. Just the way the law is there. And I think it's probably not unreasonable to have it that way.
Yeah. Good point.
Then another comment from yesterday's hearing, the conflating of the mental or the behavioral health tax issue and drug court. And at this point, did you want to take that one? Or I was just going to say, they're independent issues.
Yeah.
We should value the drug court as a separate decision and value the behavioral health tax as a separate decision. Any tax we put in, we should really justify to you that we have no other option. In the case of the behavioral health tax, that becomes a complex discussion. So,
Yeah, those get hooked together all the time, and I continually say it's two separate issues. And it gets construed that, why do you hate drug court? And I said, I don't hate drug court. I've never said I hated drug court. It's just, I actually think drug court has a purpose. It serves some people well. It's just, I don't believe any program gets to exist at unlimited funds. It just, everything has to make sense. If I'm taking money out of your guys' wallet for something, it has to work and it has to be reasonable. You just don't exist at unlimited funds. And I'm not saying they're at unlimited funds. I think they're, at this point in time, probably it looks pretty reasonable, but the arguments get so emotional, and they're really two separate issues in my mind. I don't, if it's.
and going back to the principal question of the gentleman, what is the full cost of drug court? I don't know, and I've been asking for 8 years, and I get told things that just don't make any sense. Well, the jail costs so much that you're saving money, and I haven't seen where that savings is. The jail.
My favorite one was untold millions, untold millions. Drug court saves us untold millions. I go, good. All I need is 1.2 of it and we're good. Just show me where it's at. I get tired of the emotional stuff. Just, let's just have an honest conversation. It doesn't mean it's a bad product. I think it serves a purpose. Let's just be honest with it. And that could be anything. It could be drug court. It could be whatever operates. In this arena, it gets into an emotional thing, and it, quite frankly, it gets frustrating at times, to be real honest with you, but that's the way it is.
Maybe somebody here can remember, drug court started out like 15 years ago. Does that sound about right?
No, Judge Warning is the one that initiated it, but I don't know the time frame.
Yeah.
Norm.
And part of this is maybe trying to defend my position. I like the fact that it doesn't require, I don't have the one vote to destroy drug court or build drug court. That has to be a team decision. I do like that aspect. What I don't like is the unlimited accountability that in general Superior Court tends to have, and certainly drug court has. It's like the unintended consequences of drug court have never been understood or explained. The fact that I could commit the crime under the influence of heroin makes me eligible for drug court. But the other fellow who just wasn't under the influence, he's not eligible. I worry about what is exactly that is saying. Our purpose is not to get people addicted or to depend on drugs, and yet we're favoring them. And whenever you subsidize something, you actually will grow it. And that I think we see. But it's inconvenient to collect the data. We've been in business as drug court, I think at least 15 years, and we still don't know how successful it is. If you graduated from high school and you're said to be a success of the school system, how do you know? You got a graduation, but that doesn't measure anything. High schools have the same issue. They do not, or schools have the same issue. They do not monitor and figure out how successful their graduates are. On the other, as you go into colleges, everybody knows the name colleges. How did they get that way? Well, so-and-so went to Harvard, and so-and-so is now in charge of this, so-and-so went to MIT, and he invented this. You know, we keep track of those kinds of statistics at the college level, but we don't at the high school level, even though we could. And it's just because I think people are afraid of what they might find out. Graduation rate doesn't really mean much. You want 100%? I'll give you 100%. It's one of those nonsense things. Again, focusing when you talk about principal or cost, we need to know what the full cost is.
Yeah. I'll just 1 second. I'll just reiterate, and I said this at a meeting the other day, and I give credit to Commissioner Mortons for that, is you don't get this in any other meeting around this county. We're very open here and willing to have discussions with you on things that other people will light us up for, right? So I don't try to hide anything. I've said from the very beginning, my job is to, and I think it's all public servants' job, is to tell people what they think. It's your job to decide if you like it or not. It's a very simple transaction. So that's what we try to do, and we're willing to do that here, and hopefully the new commission in January will continue that, because we like to keep it open. We like to hear back and forth, and you won't get this anyplace else.
And if I could add one thing, we like for you to understand you've got the power. And as long as we don't try to be the Governor Inslee approach, did I say that? Well, anyhow, it's important for the people to retain their sovereignty.
Yeah, and I think that the majority of the people who attend these meetings are grateful that you guys allow that. It is an important thing. And you bring up a very good point, Commissioner Dahl, about the emotional part of drug court. I think that's where most people are. And you're right, they need to separate the emotion from the facts. And I look at the drug court situation with some of the comments that were made, Commissioner Mortensen, and really, I think what we have to do is we have to identify what the purpose of that program is. Is the purpose to rehab people off of drugs, or is the purpose to get felonies off of their record? Because I have talked, I've been to a graduation, and I have talked to more than a handful of people who were graduated from drug court and or had a direct family member who went to drug court, and within less than 2 weeks had relapsed from the drugs, but the felonies were off of their record. And so the monitoring system, the lack of monitoring that you're talking about, I think if that program is to be successful and we can define what success is, we have to have a way to monitor that. For people who moved to Lewis County and have relapsed, we never know about that because we have no way of tracking it, no way of monitoring it. So the way I look at it is if it's going to be funded, we need to identify what the purpose of it is. Is it rehab or is it to get the felony off of the record? And if it's to get the felony off of the record, there needs to be a program for everybody to have the opportunity to get a felony off of the record by community service or whatever the options are that those people have so that there's equal application of the law in that situation. But it is an emotional situation, as Commissioner Dahl stated, and I can speak to that because I have a direct family member who went through the drug addiction that she had, and it was difficult. It really was. I personally don't feel that that type of program is the best type of program to work for the majority of addicts. I think it works for a specific number of people in that situation because they don't want anything on their record, and they're not full-blown addicts living out on the streets. So I think for those people, I think it's a good program. I don't know if it's the best program for them also. I think there are things within the program that we can look at, but you guys bring up very good points with regards to the emotional part of it and the perception that the public has of it, and how do we monitor the success of that program. So.
I'd like to offer a little variation there. And I've gotten this pushback from the drug court saying, well, we can't keep track of them because we don't have any handle on them. And before you go into drug court, you have to sign a contract. Now, I'm still strongly believing in contract law. They may not have a terribly tough handle on them. So maybe they move to Lewis County, maybe they move to Florida. But then it's where I come into the intangible. I've heard testimonial that say things, you saved my life. This is very important. And I know that my gratitude doesn't stop the first day I'm out of after you bought me the lunch or whatever it is you did. My gratitude doesn't stop on that day. So I am really unhappy with an argument that these people have benefited so much and cannot take the time to drop you an email every year just saying, hi, I was drug court and such, and I'm doing fine. And by the way, I paid this many taxes last, just something to let them know, and they could tabulate that. That's something that, because people aren't willing to do that, apparently, it tells me they're taking you, the public, for granted. I don't ever want to take you for granted.
Well, and I think that's one of the aspects of the program that we can look at and evaluate to determine if it's something that we need to add to it. To Commissioner Dahl's point about evaluating programs that we have and making sure that they're doing what we need to do, not just because they've been done for forever. I think that there's things that we can look at within that program and get with Judge Evans and see if there are changes that we can make to improve it. Because I think that there are things that we can do to make that program better, not only better suited for the people, for the participants, but for the taxpayer also. So, thank you.
Here's a dirty little secret. We enjoy these conversations.
It's one of the few times we get to talk to each other
I know
in a
it.
way. And so-
Usually, yeah, we don't have that opportunity.
Just a nitpick. Arne, did you suggest that a measure of success is if somebody went to Harvard or Columbia?
No, I said that the way those universities got deemed to be successful, remember, that didn't happen overnight. It happened over 100 years.
Mhm.
They said, look at all if you get me going on college, it'll be interesting. We have done some very bad things with the university, with the colleges, even with my alma mater of Harvey Mudd. We have stopped focusing on the individual and focusing on the wokeness on the DEI, and that is a destruction. But anyhow, the early ones, if you were going to be an engineer of some kind, you went to college. And the successful engineer in the field, which was really wide open, became an entrepreneur and did good stuff. And the names, oh, you better hire that guy, he's from MIT. I don't know that that applies anymore. I suspect that having a Harvard degree today is maybe not the best thing you can do for a reputation.
Well, I agree, because as soon as I hear Harvard or Columbia, I think those are the people running the government, and we're 30-some trillion on debt. So I look at a Harvard or a Columbia degree as something bad, not something good.
You and I are on the same page on that. I'll actually tell a semi-personal story. I've worked with a lot of people, and I've worked with PhDs from Caltech, from Harvard, and masters from MIT, and PhDs from MIT. And I've never been disappointed by an MIT graduate. I have been disappointed by the other two schools, whatever that means.
This drug court discussion intrigues me on the point of, really like to know what the cost is for the drug court on per visit. How many times does a person who's in that system have to appear in court? And what's the court cost every time that person appears? Attorneys, court time, judges time. I would like to know, and then the success rate of coming out of that. You turn that around and say, somebody who gets a felon on their record and they have to do prison time, how many people when they get out of prison never commit another crime? Their prison fixes the problem. Is it comparable to drug court? I mean, and those people have a felony on their record the rest of their lives, but drug court solves that problem for certain people. I'd like to see a study across the board for a whole lot of different things compared to drug court.
Yeah.
And see, is drug court worth our time and our money? Now, I'm not arguing that it's not a good system. I just don't know how good it is based on the cost and the value that we get out of it. I'd like to see that in writing. And I know you've asked for those numbers from drug court, but
you're asking it in a better, more significant way. Have you looked at other counties? Do they have drug court? How are they faring? That kind of thing?
Not every county in the state of Washington actually has drug court. And I will tell you this, and it's not scientific at all, but I've asked because I hear the same things, that it's, after I heard it saves untold millions, I said, well, I'd like to know if that's true, then other counties that don't have it, you should be able to see a difference, right?
absolutely.
And so I've asked if there's any studies for that, and nobody's ever, I have not been able to find, or I have not had anybody approach me and say that they had that kind of stuff. So I pulled up some counties and did it myself, and just took rough estimates from law enforcement and judicial from counties that don't have drug court in ours. And to be honest with you, and once again, this is not scientific, and there's probably a lot of different things in there, I could see no perceptible difference in cost of operations to a county.
Okay.
There was something else you said that stimulated me to think, and I hope I'm not getting too far out. I'm not trying to grind an axe. I'm trying to lay out perspective. That was one perspective you asked for, and apparently you'd looked at it. That's meaningful. I just mentioned that a successful graduate, I would expect, would want to, over his lifetime, if you will, keep in touch with drug court and say, I'm doing well. And by the way, here's $500 that I would like to contribute to your efforts. So meaningful. That tells you a lot. We don't see that. On the other side, what does the staff do? And you don't know, except we had a very tough situation with the COVID pandemic. And one of the things that really bothered me was that although the drug court membership dropped by an order of magnitude, instead of like 80, we were down to 8, or, you know, some such thing. It's a big number. And what did the cost of drug court do? What happened to the staff? I don't know, but we didn't get anybody, we didn't lay anybody off. We didn't reassign anybody that I could think of. Compare that to the clerk, the county clerk. When the court cases went way down, she has a backlog of information that has to be scanned and cataloged and uploaded. She took her staff and said, okay, now this is what we're going to do. We're going to clean up some of this stuff. In other words, trying to make use of the time. I don't know what happened with drug court. I know one time prior to COVID, there was a conference, I think it was in San Antonio. They wanted to send 11 people to this conference. And I'm thinking, that's a bit excessive. I don't recall what the outcome on that was, but I didn't feel very positive about that.
Now, Steve, I have been able to locate some studies that others have done on cost to the taxpayer or savings to the taxpayer, but they're really all over the board, and studies you got to be careful of, because you need to know who's asking for it, right? And just how it do. I think there was one done down in Multnomah County in Oregon where it ended up and it showed it did save the taxpayer, and it wasn't a huge amount, but it had a figure. There's one out of Baltimore, Maryland, where it really found no perceptible difference. So it was really kind of all over the board. There wasn't any consistent message that I could find. And once I'm not saying that this doesn't provide a service. I'm just saying I'm not going to throw untold money at anything.
I appreciate that. Okay. I would really like to see numbers and some type of fair comparison. And like I said, it's like, to me, the way it sits right now is like asking if somebody goes to prison and serves their term, how many people come out and they're cured because prison fixed it for them, versus how many of them end up going back to prison.
And most the prisons do have a drug rehab program. I've asked to see if I could get an apples to apples comparison, but I haven't been able to get that from anybody to what's the success of their program in prison. They get, if they complete it, they get reduced sentence and do that type of thing. So there's some incentives for them. If they're in prison, you can go through a program.
Well, there's like 39 counties in the state. Maybe the 39 counties could get together and do some type of a study, professionally done study, to come out with the comparison that you're looking for and the numbers you're looking for, to be able to sit down and say, yes, this has a value, or no, it doesn't.
Right.
I don't know.
Speaking of Caltech, everybody knows who Richard Feynman is. And yeah, if you're thinking in the common area, Einstein, just think of Feynman. And so when the Challenger explosion occurred, there was a committee put together by Congress, and it was all the right kinds of people to take a look at things. Well, the only right kind of people there was Richard Feynman. And he had some rather scathing remarks made because it was a politicized thing as opposed to, and that's the caution you're saying. You can look at the studies there. In fact, for drug court, I think there was a fellow out of one of the universities in Portland, some PhD guy, and he gave a stellar report. I was pretty sick listening to the report. I can tell the difference between something well done and something contrived for the possible outcome. And that's not a good thing. So you'll see me frequently, well, until the end of the year, always wondering about these consultants. You really have very few consultants who are just going to be what I would call agnostic and honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Most people want to label the outcome and then hire a consultant to figure out how to get there.
And staff now, I think, is better dealing with the board in that, at least I feel that when I came on board, it was, the board is a hurdle. And we've moved the needle some to where we're part of the team. Particularly the stuff that reports to the board, money is fungible. Why wouldn't you want to spend it where it benefits the county the best?
Yeah. You know, some of it's human nature, Steve, right? I mean, if something's, we can talk about any program, if something's working well, if I had, in my career, if I did something that changed and it worked well, I always shared that stuff because others could use it. So if it works well, human nature is to tell somebody, hey, look what we've done. I mean, that's human nature. If they don't have the data, that tells me something too. Well, I can't get it, or I don't have time to get it. If it was positive stuff, you would find it. That's just the way we are. So,
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you something. I'm always cautious with that. I always take into human nature. If somebody's made a change and man, they've seen these results, human nature is going to tell somebody about it. And if you don't have that, or you say, I just can't find it, that tells you something too.
I agree. Thank you.
And we have no meetings tomorrow, right?
No meetings tomorrow. Well, we could, and I could make all kinds of decisions, but it wouldn't mean anything. Okay. Anything else? Man, we always appreciate your time. Thanks for coming to visit us today. We invite people to visit us all the time. With that, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.